Now it's all about car battery circularity. We heard this before, a big topic. So Tanja, what's going to happen next?
I mean, you've just said it. We're going to talk about battery. And Helmut, but also Alexander already mentioned it in their opening speeches, that battery is such an important part when we talk about circularity. So Matze, the co-founder, one of the founders of Circular Republic, told me that for the last 6 months, up to 5 startups and corporates come together every week to really discuss and bring forward the topic of battery. So the good thing is, we will now have Matze introduce us to the topic and really lead us through the session, but he'll also show us great pioneers who have been working on that topic of battery, startups, but also corporates. I'm very much looking forward, and please welcome with us Matze.
Matze, the stage is all yours. Over to you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to talk about battery circularity now. Indeed, super hot topic, and it's 5 startups, 5 corporates, so 10 players in total that are driving the battery project with Circular Republic in the past 6 months already now. It's an enormous energy we see here, but before talking about those details and before you getting to know all those players and their missions and how it actually works together, how collaboration actually drives circular economy, we have an opening keynote by someone who is perfectly suited to lead us in the field of electric vehicles. It's Hartung Wilstermann from Webasto. He's Executive Vice President for Battery Systems, an electrical engineer by heart, and actually responsible for releasing the first electric vehicle battery ever. Hartung, the stage is yours. Please welcome him with a big applause, and I'm very excited for the opening.
Thank you very much for the introduction and especially for the chance to talk to you about batteries. And if you're expecting that I'm really talking about batteries, you will be totally disappointed. I like to talk about the background and what a battery manufacturer like Webasto can do to be part of circular economy, especially in the product of batteries. But I will not talk so much about products. What I like to talk about is about changes. Changes in mobility, and there are a lot of buzzwords you can read, which you have seen. And these buzzwords are just a synonym for one fact, which is for me the most important one we are facing right now. And this is that we as the generation living now is the first generation which experience the own future. And this is what I call a spinning world. It is not turning anymore, it is really spinning. In the following minutes, I'd like to present you the way how Webasto is dealing with that situation, with that changes in all dimensions and not only in products. And before I do that, the DNA of Webasto shows that we are already changing for the last 110 years, starting at the very beginning with the mousetrap. So had nothing to do with batteries, over the luggage racks, heating systems, roof, convertibles. Finally, 2017, we switched to batteries. And that shows already that it is not important how big you are. It's important how fast you can adapt to the needs of the market and to the world. And this enables any company to be part of that spinning world. What does it mean now? And let me start with the most important factor we have. This is our people. Not with the products, with the people. I started as working in the generation of baby boomers. Nowadays, I have 3 children growing up, and sometimes I don't understand the world anymore. but this is what will be the future. I need to face it. And it looks very relaxed, but don't get confused. This is not that somebody is really just lying down in a mattock and sleeping. This is hard work. It just looks different. And in the meanwhile, I adapted also to that generation. In my office, I also have something like that. Why should I not be part of the future? And whatever we are doing, the person we are responsible for, the people, are in the center of everything what we are doing. So for me, there is no office anymore. It is a room where people meet, come together, drink coffee, talk to each other. The work can be done from home, but you cannot meet at home. So it's a totally different scenario we are facing, and we need to take care as a company to this situation to be part of the changes which I showed in the beginning. And this is what we are doing here. We are adapting to that style, to that lifestyle, and change, for example, our offices. Green is nice, but it's a trend. I'm talking about sustainability, and this is a mindset. And how do you change mindset? By creating new products? Maybe not. Products are the result of the changed mindset. And how can you influence mindset? By leadership. And this is the key for me to be part of the future and to change the world. It is leadership. The problem is now, how do you lead not baby boomers, but Generation Z? Because, and here you can see it a little bit, there's a different style. It's more the vision, the peak you like to achieve. It's not telling them what to do. It is giving the vision, like Saint-Exupéry told us. So you need a vision and then help people reaching that vision. This is leadership. And if you look at the organization behind, then it needs different organizations, and not only one different organization. We are facing a lot of different organizations within one company at the same time. Not one hierarchy, a lot of different networks, a lot of different hierarchies which you need to deal with. The employees as entrepreneurs with a lot of responsibility for their own products and their own work. So we really need to change your understanding of leadership. And please don't distinguish management with leadership. It's a totally different thing. Managing is managing things, projects, reaching goals. Leadership is influencing people that they are able to reach the vision which you have created together with them. And this is what I call the real sustainability. Mindset and leadership. But not to disappoint you too much, I also like to talk a little bit about products and the environment we are living in. And this is the established relationships with customer and suppliers are changing dramatically. Today we are applying for cells, for example. We are not buying them. But we are negotiating very hard with our customers in a way I've never thought about a couple of years ago, by telling them, if you're not giving us what we need, you will not get the product anymore. So the tone is totally different. And then we have new players, like Tesla in the beginning, but a lot of other companies came up, startups, which are totally unknown, you need to deal with now. So this is all the scenarios we need to address, and therefore you need to really change your habits and the established processes, which is even more difficult than create new ones. How can you do that? For example, Webasto created the so-called CV for commercial vehicle battery. Before we had the logic like an OE, we got a Lastenheft specification, then we developed and tried to reach this specification. That's what we're also doing, and that's what we're doing where we get most of our money from. But parallel, we started a new product, which is also battery, like a consumer product. So we defined it by our own, no customer. We developed it and produced it in Schilling, no customer. Then we put it on the shelf, and then we are waiting for the customer passing by, like off-road vehicle, like mining cars, like trailers, like marine. So we address a lot of markets which are not the classical OE markets with that product. So you can see here, total different thinking of how to make business. We need to adapt to the fact that we have enough energy. Before it was the problem, do we have enough energy? Yes, we do. The sun is giving us much more energy than we need. Unfortunately, not at the right point of time and maybe not at the right place. But this is a logistical problem. So, energy problems comes back to how to transport and store energy. Totally different task. What we are doing here, as Webasto, we take our own batteries and make stationary storages out of it, which we're using in our production. So that's the way how we can deal with this situation that the energy is not the problem, but the right point of time and place to get it. Hardware to software. I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. The hardware we still need, but the core is the intelligence inside. And here I'm not only focusing on the software in terms of bits and bytes, I'm also talking about new ideas like wireless information within the battery, for example. Webasto assembled the first prototype where we have a completely wireless system within the battery, which helped us to reduce hardware like copper, and we can correct mistakes, for example, wrong pinnings in the past. We can correct just by software. And the benefit, of course, is saving money, saving weight and material. So this is also, for me, circular economy. Avoiding any material is the best what you can do. If you don't have it, you don't need to deal with it later on. So replacing hardware by software, for example, with wireless instead of harnesses. Global dependencies. Yes, we know the world is global and it will stay global, no doubt. But what changed dramatically is that our supply chains are not robust in the way we are doing it. And even if you think in the future we will have global supply chains, we need to localize, we need to adapt to the situation that we get the raw materials where we need it and still have global business. So I have no problem to have a Korean or Chinese supplier in Europe for Europe batteries. So I'm not saying we need to stay within our nationality boundaries. We can be global. But if you look at the material flow, then you definitely need to localize. And what you also need to take into account is, where do you get it from? The classic way of asking a supplier, or getting out of your own production, for example, with repair or remanufacturing. That is also part of the supply chain in the future. Right now, we don't have so much cars on the road giving us back the batteries, but it will come, definitely. Because the batteries we are sending out right now will come back one day. And what you're doing then is recycling the right way, No, maybe you can do a lot of more smarter things like remanufacturing, reuse, so put it in a different purpose, or even disassemble it and rebuild a new battery out of the parts which you still can use, which is then part of the supply chain. So here we have completely new processes and mindset as well. Overexploitation in comparison to renewable energies. Totally clear, we need to get the energy out of renewable energies. And what we have done as Webasto in Schilling, you can go there and see that we have all our energy we need for the production coming out of solar we installed. And for emergency, we have an H2 power plant, which is in standby. And even that one is with green Wasserstoff, hydrogen. So even that one is completely renewable. So we are producing already completely CO2 neutral. Unfortunately, not in the complete supply chain. This is task for tomorrow. But what you can do today, we have already established. And even in other countries like Korea, we are doing that a little bit slower, but I know when we will have it finished, and this will be soon. And last but not least, throwaway society is yesterday, is past. We need to think in circular economy and act in circular economy. And again, it all starts in the very beginning at mindset and leadership. This is where it starts. And this is what we presented on the fairs, on the EIA here in Munich a couple of months ago. This was a wooden battery. Does it mean Webasto is selling now wooden batteries? No. This is a symbol for what I have said. The symbol of thinking in renewable ways, thinking in circularity. And then the product will come out of that by itself. And this is why we showed the future with the wooden battery. And to be honest, I can think about parts being out of wood or natural elements, maybe not the housing, but inside. And if you look at the cell, for example, there are also different cells on the market which have better or worse CO2 footprint, so we can select the right suppliers. And then we come to a real green product. At the end for me, and this is my motivation why I stand up every morning, is the same transformation we started 120 years ago from the horse to cars. Today we have the chance to transform the fossil transportation to the solar mobility in all three dimensions. Not only in automotive, but also in marine, aviation, everywhere. And this is what I call solar mobility. And I don't care if it's hydrogen or if it's battery or pure battery. It all comes out of the sun. And what you're doing here is showing you a movie.
For us, e-mobility is more than just a trend. Sustainability, more than just a buzzword. Built on more than 90 years of our automotive DNA, we create future-proof battery systems. We ensure the mobility of the future for everybody, today and tomorrow.
We cannot change the world, but we can change ourselves. This is what I like to end with, because yes, by doing that, we will change the world. But we start here and with us. Thanks a lot. And we have at least a couple of minutes left for some questions.
Thank you, Hartung. Are there any questions? Philip, please.
Hi. Everybody says the Chinese are way ahead in terms of battery technology. How do you see that? And
I would say this is they are different. They are different. They definitely have evidence where they're much faster than we are, but not in every dimension. So for me, it is more a collaboration. Everybody should do where he's best in. So we should not try to compete in areas where the culture, the Chinese culture, for example, has advantages like speed. And we should focus on our, if you talk about language, nationalities, we should focus on our benefits like thinking ahead and establish processes. And the best comes out if you combine both. And this is why I don't like this discussion, the Chinese. Who is the Chinese? I have Chinese employees. I am part of China because I lived there for a long time. And I don't feel like I'm German, they are Chinese. I feel I'm part of this planet. And we all have a huge challenge in the future. So sorry for being not precise here, but I like to discuss a little bit of Knobel and focus on different chances everybody is bringing to the table. And yes, the Chinese are faster. Any other question? One last question. Okay. Then thanks a lot from my side.
Perfectly on time. Thank you so much for warming us up for the battery panel, talking about leadership, talking about mindset, super important prerequisites. Another big hand to Hartung. And now we take that mindset to think about what we can actually do and what we are actually doing. Because while the transition to batteries is happening, the question of circularity is not solved yet. This year we had 100,000 tons of end-of-life old batteries in Europe, and we did not know what to do with them. That figure is growing by 50% every year in the next years. And we do have ideas, but no functioning solutions. If you have an old battery on your yard, from maybe a battery electric car that you bought already 10, 15 years ago, you need to put thousands of euros on top of that battery so someone would pick it up. The reason being that circular value chain is not yet working efficiently. Logistics are inefficient in order transporting the batteries. There is a lot of manual work in battery value chains. Most shredders in Europe still manually dismantle the housing, the sheet metal, the copper cables from the batteries. It's very highly skilled engineers that are able or are allowed to touch such high voltage systems, expensive processes. We don't have scaled up second life versions. The picture that Hartung showed you of a second life container, not yet running at scale in many functions. And we have an enormous energy consumption once batteries are shredded in recycling, the so-called black mass, typically heated up to 1,400 degrees, and then even most of the material inside is not really recycled or recovered. And what we did, together with all those great partners, you'll see the circle behind me in a second, is we tried to close the loop with all the tech companies we have around. We found LipCycle. We have Aaron here in a minute who will pitch his business model that found an innovative way to pack batteries and stack them on trucks to push down logistics costs. That's up here. After end-of-life batteries, reverse logistics. We found stable, you will see Arthur here in a minute, who is scaling the second life business, who is giving value to old batteries through scaled solutions for second life. We found Circularity, we have Xavier here, who is an absolute pioneer in Europe by dismantling batteries in an automated way. Hardly any manual work involved in dismantling batteries. And we found Sarah from 2.0 here, who is a hydrometallurgy player, meaning they're able to recover the material, the black mass, from shredding, not by heating it up to 1,400 degrees, but at super low temperature with a wet chemical process. And by that, across the whole chain, building a circular value chain that ideally is able to transform batteries from being a liability, putting thousands of euros on top in order to get rid of it, to being an asset, an urban mine, something that we can use in the end. It's highly complex in the details. Totinia mentioned it. It's every week since months sitting together of all those startups and the corporate players. But it's fun and it's the right thing to do. And I warmly welcome, firstly, our startups, Sarah, Aaron, Xavier, and Arthur. I'm excited. You feel that I have a blackout. Please come to stage. Thank you for being here with us today. Let's start with Aaron along the cycle with LipCycle to give us a short pitch around how you are transforming reverse logistics in batteries.
Thank you very much, Mathe. So LipCycle, we are the lithium-ion battery cycle. We provide an all-in-one service for the transport of lithium-ion batteries. I guess I will have to take that now. About us, the transport of the batteries nowadays is really inefficient. And that's why you need a solution, and we made it our goal to provide that solution. We optimize this process with our innovative transport box, our logistics services, and dismantling with our partners. What we offer is an uncomplicated, fast, and safe mode to get batteries from A to B. Our all-in-one service includes the classification, because batteries are dangerous goods, so they have to be classified. They are either okay, defective, or even critically damaged. Depending on that, you need different type of packaging. You also have dismantling and testing. So if you have, for example, an electric vehicle and the battery has to be changed, then you don't know what to do with that battery. We offer the service of dismantling, so the whole battery package is taken to modules, and those modules are tested whether they can go to second life or recycling. We also offer packaging services. We have our own transportation box which we developed, and we also provide that as a service. So for example, if an OEM has a battery that has to be recycled, we can go there with our boxes, load the batteries into the box, and then bring that to recycling or second life or wherever it has to go. If you have a battery that goes to recycling, that's also considered as waste. And that's where logistics become complicated. Because if you have waste, you have a highly regulated territory. Every country has different laws on waste transports, so you need an understanding of the whole regulatory work in the EU if you want to act on the whole European level. And we, with our partner InTime, we also have our partner in time is the logistics partner and our investor, and we have warehouses in almost all of the European countries, and that way we can provide logistics, because if you want to transport waste internationally, batteries are hazardous waste, so you need a notification. Notification means I have to, if I want to transport a battery, for example, from Hungary to Germany, I have to ask the Hungarian authorities, can I export this battery from you? Then I have to ask the Austrian authorities, am I allowed to bring this battery through your country? And then I also have to ask the German authorities, am I allowed to import these batteries? And that's a really long process to set up such a notification. So that's where we also want to add value. And we have our warehouses all over Europe, and we are building those notifications. So if a company wants to transport a battery, for example, from Hungary to Germany, they don't have to build up their own notification, but they can use the ones we have between our warehouses. So we enable the whole transportations in whole of Europe. So that's what we do: uncomplicated, fast, and safe transports all over Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Arthur, when you get a battery at end of life, what do you do with it?
Yeah, so thank you. My name is Arthur. I am co-founder and CEO of Stable Energy. We give batteries a second life. All of you know we have more and more volatile energy production like photovoltaics and wind, and we want to have energy when we need it, on demand, all the time. And for that, we need some kind of buffer. And battery storage systems are those kind of buffers. And we as Stable, we offer battery storage systems to buffer renewable energy production. But today, purchasing is complicated. For one, those batteries are expensive. And second, they are risky. All of you know from your smartphones or laptops that the batteries degrade. They get worse and worse. And from media coverage, we have also seen battery fires. And if there is a business having to do the decision to pay a lot of money for an asset which might start burning, usually the decision is no, I don't want this asset. So what we offer as Stable is those battery storage systems as a service. That means the companies can have those as a subscription. This reduces the upfront investment by about 90%. And it is risk-free because we take the guarantees of the capacity and power. So you do not have to take care about degradation of the batteries. And lastly, our systems are sustainable because they are based on second life batteries. Those are batteries which have had their first life in a car, and we reuse them. This reduces the CO2 footprint by about 70%. How do we do it? This is a classical system for high performance. You have a battery. Wow, that's so cool. I wanted to try it out. So you have here a battery pack, inverter, and here is whatever, the motor, the load, the house, whatever. And those battery packs usually have in the range of 400 volts for cars in your Tesla or BMW i3. And it consists out of modules, and in the modules are the battery cells. But a lithium cell has only 4 volts. To reach the 400, you need about 100. You need a long, long, long chain. And a chain, all of you know, is only as strong as its weakest link. That means that if a single battery cell is weaker than the rest, you have less capacity available. And if a single battery cell has an issue, the chain breaks. The system is not working anymore, the car stops. What we do with Stable is we break up those chains. We have developed a technology which does not need those long chains anymore. We put our power electronics on each battery module. And in doing this, we make one battery module independent from the others. So if there is a weak cell, only one module is weak. The rest can work at full performance. And if a cell has an issue, we can bridge this battery, the system continues operations. And then we can replace this battery module by whatever battery module is available in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. It can have another voltage, another chemistry, another capacity. In our eyes, that's the biggest lever to make second life and reuse and circular economy of batteries possible. And the market is big. If you look at the numbers, there will be about 10 times more batteries for cars available, then there will be batteries needed for stationary applications. That means that if we're able to give only 10% of the batteries from cars a second life, we have the needed capacity to make the energy transition happen. And with our technology, we can not only use those virgin batteries, which have never been in a car, we can also use those shitty batteries, which have seen whatever, 100, 2,000 kilometers already. The systems are working. We have commercial products in Berlin, in Switzerland, here on the right side, the green one. This is one of our newest systems. It has 1.4 megawatt hours, so we have breached this megawatt hour big system, and we feel a lot of traction. So the pipeline is filling up. We have won last year the EES award at the Intersolar. That's one of the most prestigious awards in the field of electrical energy storage. And Deutsche Bahn has announced a cooperation with Kia and with us. So if a DAX company announces a cooperation with a little startup, that's already a big sign of trust. So we are looking for partners who want to do projects with us. We are looking for pioneers who want to do projects, who want to use second life batteries, and who want to join us in setting a new standard on how we use batteries. Thank you.
Thank you. If a battery is really not usable anymore, or once even through the second life, it gets into the hand of Xavier. The stage is yours, Xavier.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Xavier Kohl, and Circulion is boosting battery value. Can we just get the timer right? It's 16 minutes. I'm not going to speak that long. Whoever is doing the... Yeah, there we go. Thanks. The goal of Circulion is to automatically upcycle the next 3 billion battery packs for upcycling or for more efficient recycling. If you look around, our entire economy is getting electrified. From 2019 to 2030, we'll have a 15-fold increase of deployed battery packs in our economy. However, there's still a lot of issues related to that. Like Matthias mentioned, a lot of dangerous and manual disassembly for recycling. It's also not scalable. We have no relevant and insightful battery data, and there will be a lot of new regulations coming soon. So the battery value chain is rather complex, if you've seen before. So where does Circulion come in? So Circulion, through its automatic disassembly with robots, enables a second and third life by giving it, for example, too stable. And then also at the end of life of battery packs, they need to be disassembled to have clean material streams to enable clean recycling, so we get new battery materials. So how do we do this? We have built a battery upcycling platform, which is composed of two major parts. First of all, we have the battery data platform, where all the battery disassembly protocols for our robots are stored and how we disassemble it. And then we have the robotic cells. And we have tools that we internally developed, like computer vision, AI for diagnostics. And this enables our automated solution to disassemble the battery packs, generate data insights. And I've brought to you a short video how that looks in our facility in Karlsruhe. So here you can see a hybrid battery pack coming to the facility. Our robot scans the battery pack automatically. The AI guides the robot to the screws, does the unscrewing. Next up, it will remove the lid of the battery pack and thereby makes disassembly much faster, more efficient. And then you can recover the modules that you see here, either for upcycling or more efficient recycling. As I mentioned, data is key to our business. On the one hand side, we need data to run our robots efficiently and our disassembly processes. Moreover, the data we generate on the battery packs is key to have also quick diagnostics of single cells or of modules. And lastly, this data is valuable to other partners that want to have access to this. So what does this mean for our clients? We can reduce their energy consumption by up to 35%. We increase their efficiency, which has a contribution to their net margin, and we reduce waste by 70%. The time for our innovation is right now. Why? Because we have a lot of new regulations coming. We have a huge, exponentially growing market to tackle of end-of-life battery packs. And this is key for the West. If we want to be resource independent, we need to treat our battery packs locally, recycle them locally, upcycle them locally, and produce them locally. And of course, a business model can not only be sustainable, it has to be economically viable. And this is specifically interesting for upcycling, because we see a battery pack not only once, but 2 to 3 times to disassemble it. And whereas every battery pack at the end of its life needs to be recycled only once. We have a hybrid go-to-market strategy. We, on the one hand side, operate our own facilities where we today upcycle and disassemble battery packs already, and we're right now rolling out as a machine as a service the robotic cells to disassemble battery packs at client sites. And we're negotiating global licensing models. Our target markets is recyclers and OEMs. And we have shown with our existing customers that we can tackle very big battery value streams. And we are proud to be part of many alliances like the Circular Republic and also of Intel and NVIDIA accelerators. Our vision is to become the battery agnostic value chain, the battery value chain winner, first by focusing on automatic disassembly, but next we'll move into sorting and enabling automatically to that direct recycling is possible. This only is possible through our team. We bring academic excellence to the market. With that, I'm out of time. Thank you for your attention.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Xavier. Once you dismantled the battery, in our vision of the perfect circular value chain, it goes to Sarah, and that's directly the handover to 2.0.
Work? Yes. All right. Hello. My name is Sarah. I'm the co-founder and CEO of 2.0. And as Mats already mentioned, we truly bring lithium-ion battery waste to zero. Maybe, first off, raise your hands if you are driving a car. Now keep your hands up if it's electric. Okay, that looks actually really bad. So we might be facing humanity's biggest problem is to how to avoid climate crisis. As we've mentioned already several times now, especially with the keynote speech from Webasto, we have to bring 51 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually to zero every year. And the great thing is we have a solution, which is lithium-ion batteries. Lithium-ion batteries help us to get to net zero by electrifying everything. What does that mean for Europe? We have to produce a lot of batteries. So the next 2 decades, we have to produce roughly 40 times more batteries than what we do today. And what a lot of people do not talk about is this produces lots of waste. So in the same 2 decades in front of us, we're going to face 200-fold of lithium-ion battery waste. This is insane. You might ask yourself, okay, wait a minute. Why is this? I thought batteries hold 8, 12, 16 years, depending on how it's being used. The thing is that a lot of people do not talk about, in the gigafactories, when you build the lithium-ion batteries, a lot of production scrap is happening. So today, over 60% of our battery waste comes from production scrap directly from the gigafactories itself. And yes, you have consumer electronics, all your iPhones in your pockets. I don't think they work 8, 12 years. Then all your laptops, e-scooters, e-bikes, and then yes, some cars are coming back as well. At the moment, energy storage systems is just a very minor part. So what happens to these batteries today? We throw them into high temperatures, like in fire. It's called pyrometallurgy. It's 1,400 degrees, and the batteries are more or less smelted away. I call it waste removal. is not recycling. Half of the materials are lost. The white gold, your lithium, is lost completely. Carbon, or your graphite, burns in this process. The smart ones out there, carbon, that's your CO2. And manganese is lost here as well. The European Commission is not stupid. They know, okay, we have all this waste here in Europe. That's where the critical materials is. As Xavier mentioned, Europe is completely dependent on these critical materials. Wouldn't it be smart to try to get exactly all of these critical materials out? And that's where they set up the regulations. The great thing is Europe is very strict in regulations, probably the most in the whole world. So by 2031, we have to be able to recover all the lithium to up to 80%, cobalt nickel, 95%, and every single new battery has to entail 6 to 16% of recycled content. This is good business for recyclers. This is great. And this is exactly where we come in as 2.0. We truly close the circle for lithium-ion batteries. We exactly collect all the battery waste, maybe shipped by LiveCycle, dismantled by Circularity, but then also shredded with our partners, and we collect all of that. It's called black mass, as Mats mentioned, and we really recover and truly bring it back to the circle, which is lithium, nickel, cobalt, manganese, and graphite. What happens if we can do this? If we properly recycle, we can cover 72% of Europe's demand on lithium that we need to use to build sustainable batteries. What does sustainable batteries mean? We can reduce the carbon footprint of each single lithium-ion battery up to 72%. And this is where we do it, here in Munich. This is where our heart beats. But we also cover already other European countries, such as in the DACH region, France, East Europe, and Scandinavia, also UK. This is the team. We're 17 people. We actually got 3 people here, Max, Florian, and Tim. Maybe raise your hand so everybody knows who you are. We have a stand upstairs so you can meet us. But yes, if you are an OEM, if you're a company that has waste batteries, come to us. We have a solution. Number 2, if you're looking for a bachelor thesis, master thesis, or a job that is more mission-driven, come and talk to me. And number 3, if you're a journalist, I have a huge press release being announced tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. We won't let questions happen now because we want to focus the storyline here on the main stage, and all of them are up there in the startup area, available for you for all your questions. Let's give them another big hand of applause and thank you for telling us your stories. Now, I want to mention another thing. I think it should be fine, thank you. I want to mention another thing that's crucial for this process, because we were now talking so far about the physical process. And as we all know, we're living in a digital world. In order for processes to function, it's essential that these processes are digitally enabled. And we're super grateful to having SAP here. They are with us in all these meetings, with all the startups and with all the corporates in the past month, thinking about how can we actually track the mass balance, the CO2 of the whole process. And I'm grateful that we have Sabine here, who will present us the solution and you will mention yourself, what is the best thing about that solution? I won't spoil it. Please, Sabine Wichmann from SAP.
Together with Matthias Held.
Together with Matthias Held.
Right. Thank you so much, Matthias, and it's great being here. I think we already heard major topics about circular battery management. The first topic we heard that it's a very complex process and actually ecosystem. And on the other side, we heard that data can bring a lot of value. And we at SAP also see it that way. And we see that through digital solutions, we can enable more transparency and bring this ecosystem closer together and provide more transparency, and thus actually also enable our stakeholders and battery value chain members to improve their business processes. For example, we heard about the logistic decisions. How do we transport batteries? It potentially depends on the data, on which kind of batteries. Are they defect or are they in other state? A lot of information can be shared across this value chain, which we see here one more time in a simplified way. We see that we have the OEMs who produce those batteries. They are either new batteries or the scrap of the defect batteries, right? We have the service partners from which we just also heard. We have the dismantlers, shredders who produce the black mass. We have the hydrometallurgy partners. We have the cathode active material producers when we talk about creating new material. And we want to actually also support this closing the loop by bringing all these partners together and enabling them with information sharing. So one more word about myself. My name is Sabine Wichmann. I'm Innovation and Sustainability Lead at SAP. And together with my colleague, Matthias, who is the head of engineering at SAP Green Token, we will demonstrate to you how can we actually close this material loop. So let's start with the perspective of the shredder, so the recycler who does the shredding process. The product that he actually produces is the black mass. He gets typically his material, in this case from the battery producer, who we call in this demo scenario OEM1, and he will receive the battery cell scrap. That's his input material. And in the solution, we will see that all this is supported by transactional information and documents which are digitally there to support different decision making. So that's supported by the inbound delivery documents. In the next step, the goal actually, as you heard also, is to recover that valuable or critical material. In this case, it's the lithium material. So we will follow these kind of steps and see how we can achieve more transparency through the digital solutions. So let's have a look at the solution. Matthias, how does it actually look like?
Yeah, hi. Now we will switch to Green Token. This already shows the screen of our recycling company. Green Token is a solution which maps the materials from the physical world to digital twins and then follows the digital twins through the complete loop. So that's kind of the mission we want to show now. And it starts with inbound delivery. At our recycling company, we received a delivery of 100 defect cells. So that's what you just saw, that the status is defective. So you can't use it for a second life. First step we now see is, and now we stop a bit, I guess, and we need to follow the conversion process. So you see as input our defect OEM cell modules, 20 pieces, and we kind of know the conversion ratio. So we concentrate now on the black mass, and we have other parts coming out of it, and we have some loss of some percent which is gone. Let's continue. So this was the shredding and sorting process, by the way. So now we go to another kind of feature, which is the chain of custody. The chain of custody makes the whole supply chain, until now, transparent. So we see that the black mass actually has been generated or converted from OEM1 cell modules, but the same way we can also see that we also got deliveries from OEM2 and OEM3 and so on. So we can still map our total amount of black mass, which is 500 kilogram, down to small amounts which came from where. And we can also show this in a nice graphical way. And that's the first time we show this, and that repeats now with every step in our supply chain. So you will see the screen more often, but always bigger, I guess. And now we have the next kind of process step, which takes the black mass and converts it into all the more or less raw materials. So the most interesting right now is the lithium. So all this data is demo data. We try to be close to realistic data, but to make it simple, we also used simple numbers here. So don't kill us if the numbers are wrong. So now let's go to track and trace. Chain of custody now is one. Now we show the chain of custody for lithium. So again, we can trace back the amount of lithium came from which source. So our total amount would be 16 kilogram, but we kind of could create virtual wallets showing how much of our lithium came from where. And we recorded some additional properties, like here's the recovery rate. But we could also collect any other information which might be interesting. But yeah, we understood that the recovery rate is very important. Okay, let's continue. Did we switch? Wait, that's the beginning of the video. So, what happens next? Sorry.
Exactly. So what we just saw were basically these two process steps. We had the incoming material, battery cell scrap. We created black mass out of it. And out of the black mass, we recovered the lithium material. So as you heard also, we don't want to stop there, right? And I think also Matthias mentioned in the Circular Battery Sandbox project, we want to actually close the loop. So the next steps are producing new material. And the key is to keep that link and traceability together with what was the recycled material and how can this recycled material now be used for new material production. So let's have a look. We have the next stakeholders in the ecosystem, in the value chain. We have the cathode active material producer who will now produce new chem material. And in this case, they will receive the material, also physically, from the recycler who did just now that recovery of the lithium material. And this is also supported in the systems by the documents. That's the black.
That's the black mass.
Mass.
Oh, even the microphone doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I know it's off.
So now we can make the black mass, Joe.
Yeah. Let's see.
Let's continue without.
Die Zeit kriegen wir wieder zurück, ne?
For me, the most impressive thing about this solution is that what you saw was obviously dummy data and dummy entities, dummy OEM1, dummy OEM2 in there, but it's an active solution. It's live. It was like you videotaped it from using that solution, and it can be used already now. And when we're now also within our Circular Republic project, run through the project, we're able to use a solution that is actually enabling those physical flows directly from day one, digitally supported. And that is what's in the end needed to leverage all the value out of it, to leverage the value from the optimized logistics, lip cycle, to leverage the value from second life, stable, to leverage the value from optimized dismantling, Circuline, and to leverage the value from to zero, the hydrometallurgy. All this together, we realize the mass balance, we can prove the mass balance, and then send the material to a new cathode active material supplier, which we also have in the network, and by that build this new value chains. Unfortunately, we don't see the second part now, but let's not get stuck by this. Let's please give a big hand of applause to the team from SAP. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I ask for 20 more minutes of your attention because we now come to the core enablers of all this process, the ones that think ahead, that are most strategically planning because they are responsible for the ramp up of all the batteries, especially our OEMs. I want to welcome Thomas Innerebner from BMW. Thomas, where are you? Super. leading the e-mobility there, I want to welcome Michael Bernhard from MAN, Head of New Powertrain Components. Michael, thank you for being with us. Please freely choose. And Stephen Jamieson, the Global Head of Circular Economy Solutions from SAP, driving the project we've just seen. Please have a seat. Maybe quickly to stay connected to what we just saw in the solution, I would start with Stephen, because this is also potentially a segue to introduce yourself. You're looking about circular economy solutions across the entire portfolio. And when you look at different value cycles in different industries from a data perspective, like, to what extent is this scaled already within SAP? Can you do one? Can you do all? How do you look at those solutions?
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, for having me. So, yeah, as you say, I look across all industries, all solution areas, and trying to find those big bets, if you like, the kind of parts of the ecosystem where we can drive the most impact and how we can have the best business return as well. Let's be honest, we're in this from an economical point of view. And when we look across the landscape, if you like, particularly in this space, we're talking about, first of all, 20% of global greenhouse gas emissions when we look at transportation. So a lot of our thinking from a sustainability standpoint starts with, how does our impact, get sort of established, and where does the rubber meet the road in that sense? Then we're looking at kind of the core processes and the kind of core things that can actually scale. Actually, what you just saw there with Green Token, we actually innovated initially with Unilever, where we're looking at the supply chain of palm, and we're looking at how we can assure the kind of most sustainable palm sources are finding their way through to consumers through a complex chain of custody. And, well, to no surprise, we can reuse those same principles across lots of different types of natural capital. And so, as sort of regulations develop, as new requirements in business for premiumization of products emerge, these solutions become sort of more and more present. So to that extent, yes, they are do it once, reuse it, many times. I guess the challenge comes from the vast range of different business scenarios and business applications and data sets and integration scenarios where we really do need to find those sort of multi-purpose ways of sort of translating these scenarios into as many uses as possible. This is fun, isn't it? So yeah, I'll start up at 10.
Thank you. Quickly leading over to Thomas from BMW. Thomas, BMW is considering itself a global leader in circular economy, especially when it comes to material and to batteries. You're driving that for batteries a lot. How transformative is that for the organization, right? We just heard it's also starting to embed in very different systems. How much are you present with the topic of circular economy across the organization already?
Yeah, so when we stick to the topic of the battery itself, I think it's very important to acknowledge also that the battery technology behind it, a battery electric vehicle, is something really, really new. It's a field of industry that is changing rapidly. There is new solution coming in, new startups popping up on a daily basis, which in itself affects the entire value chain, especially for a more traditional manufacturer such as BMW, which has done vehicle production for about 100 years. When we then think about circular economy, which basically disrupts this value chain on how we used to do things in the past, that we had a more linear process and now have to develop a system to come into in a more circular perspective. So it's very important, first of all, to set a proper framework for people to get the transfer of know-how across the entire company and provide a process structure which allows people to develop new product innovations, but to also give them the freedom to do it in a sustainable manner. So that they actually can put in the product innovation that you need at the end of the day for your circularity and for a circular economy. Now, when you talk about daily operations, I think it's important to also consider that right now, as of 2023, we have 15% of our vehicles sold being electric. So that means there is still some time down the road where you physically actually can close the loop on a high level. So for us, it's just important about setting up the process structure and for allowing people to engage in new ideas and give them the freedom and the flexibility to do so, and to have the top management support in order to create that freedom. And I can tell you from a personal experience, I came to BMW about 7 years ago from the outside. I started within a circular economy project. It wasn't batteries, but still circular economy. And I got to witness to see how that company transferred from a more, or for me itself, being more on the outside to actually come to the center of what really is important for us as a company, being one of the 3 core pillars we have. We used to have on our four-cylinder building a couple of months ago.
When you say now 15% are sold, so like the actual impact is still some years down the road, how much worse or different is that for trucks, Michael?
It's in a similar region, I would say, and it's an important thing. So that it's a new technology, the battery e-mobility, and for the recycling we need enough old batteries, so to say, in the field to start the whole recycling process. But nevertheless, we have to start now to get now the new technology and recycling process. We have to start now to be prepared also in the future, because it's a valuable material behind that, and we see it now on the cost and prices of the batteries, that the material itself it's valuable to do such things and put a lot of effort in it.
I mean, it's important to understand. You say it's the same range. At the end of the day, in a truck, there are much more batteries than there are in a car, right? Maybe 700 instead of 70 kilowatt hours. And at the same time, the electrification is also now really ramping up. So the truck industry actually has a similar need for recycled lithium from 2031 and so on, right?
Yes, that's true, and you are correct. So we in our electric vehicles or buses or trucks, we have 500, 600 kilowatt hours. So I would say 5 times, 6 times more as like in the past cars.
What's for you the biggest challenge to get people to a circular mindset in the organization?
I would say we have to show that is possible. Yeah? Show the concept like here today, that it's a very good initiative to show that it's possible, that there are different concepts behind that, and then we have to go in the real operation, I would say. So at MAN we have the same definition that Hartung explained before. So we have our first life. So for our trucks, buses, and vans. Then we have the second use, where the batteries can come in the second use for a used vehicle. Then the second life, for example, energy storage systems, and then in the end, the recycle process. And for the second use, we also have research projects, like the Revamp project. That's a research project where we automatically can disassemble the batteries, check the status, remanufacture them, and bring it again in a second use. And that's we have a lot of experience from our conventional components there, like the internal combustion engines or other conventional components, where we do this already, not for batteries, but we know the principal processes behind, and we want to try it also for the batteries itself, to have the real closed circle there.
Stephen, are they reaching out already? Are they asking you for tracking of all the material and the mass balance of the material being bought?
Man specifically? Or?
No, maybe actually the OEMs more general. To what extent, where are those talks? Is it planning of future projects? Or is it actual business already starting to scale? I think that's an interesting question for people. The whole day was about scaling circular solutions. Where are we in terms of scaling?
Yeah, I think there's this isn't a new topic, right? We've been sort of in this process, I guess, at least 5 years, so my sort of living memory of the subject, if not longer. And you know, throughout that period, there's been a sort of long period of testing and trialing and innovating different sort of technology capabilities. You know, I think now at the end of the day, these things ultimately have these sort of regulatory moments which ultimately create cliff events that drive change. And so, you know, with the EU Battery Directive, we have one of those cliff events, and that's now motivating the sector to sort of act as one and sort of bringing us to these conversations here. So, you know, there's a lot of detailed exploration. There's a lot of like piloting and trialing and different sort of levels of investment in order to be able to sort of test out those business scenarios and those models. You know, but we kind of need to work at the same pace as the regulations, and that's an evolving piece at the moment. As we sort of scale with the industry together, you know, we can't jump ahead 2-3 years and present the solution and hope everyone kind of catches up. We have to sort of work hand in hand and sort of go on the journey together.
What's the driving force accelerating the progress right now? Is it this kind of projects together with the startups that have just presented? Is it the people from the governmental affairs department saying, guys, regulation is coming, do something? Maybe, Michael, you're nodding.
Yeah, regulation, of course, is always a driver. That's true. But also the close cooperation in this new field of technology is important. So as you said, we don't know where we are in 5 years or in 10 years. So we have to develop it together, and we need different partners. No OEM can do it alone, and as startup setting like this here can support this, bring together the different stages of this whole circular process. That's important to get a whole picture and a closed loop in the end.
Staying with regulation for a moment, EU Battery Directive, that one core driver we talked about a little bit, is basically saying from 2031 onwards, a share of 6 to 7% of the lithium used in new batteries needs to be recycled. As the number of batteries is hugely growing, you saw Sarah's slide about how many gigawatt hours we're building up. At the same time, only a few are coming back from the early times, means we basically need all the lithium recovered to fulfill that regulation. You mentioned, Michael, it's a driving force. How is it still seen? Is it an opportunity? Is it, or how do you manage, for example, BMW to make this seen as an opportunity?
Okay, I would say in its core, regulation defines always a framework for all market players to sort of a guiding principle, so to say. And that's generally a good thing. So everyone has the framework set for them in which they have to behave, equal rights for everyone. At BMW, we would also say we look at government regulation not just on the EU regulation, which is, of course, very ambitious, but we also try to focus on other markets, such as very important markets for us is the US and China, and to look at regulation more on a global scale. I would like to go into also what Michael said, is that we have in terms of feasibility, it remains to be seen to actually what extent in 2030 and going on forward, what the volume will be that comes back that is already at the end of its life. So that's something I think there is some way down the road. There is still some uncertainty, and it has to be proven to what extent it actually can be fulfilled. I think it's also very important to point out that there has to be some sort of equal share. There has to be some balance in between, because for us, maybe as a premium company, it can be easier to source secondary materials when it is limited.
What do you mean with equal share? Like,
I mean basically there should be also considered how different companies can gain access to secondary materials if the material is limited. If I, for example, am required to introduce 16%, but I have to pay a very high premium for secondary materials, it should be regulated that actually everyone is capable of putting that amount into his production if the source is that limited. And how that will play out, I think that remains to be seen.
Green token in the end will help to provide at least the mass balance so you can see how much is even there, right?
Well, I mean, it's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because I think there's a lot of talk about regulations in this space and the need to respond and deliver these sort of secondary material targets. But at the end of the day, and maybe this is fine for the Brit to say, I don't know, but the reality around using regulations alone is not necessarily going to be sustainable in the long term. You know, we need to make sure that we're creating a secondary system that is as economically viable, if you like, as the primary system, if not more economically viable, and it needs to be competitive in that sense. And to deliver on that, we are talking about transparency. We're talking about the need to have predictability and the ability to have visibility and long-term planning so that we can drive those efficiencies and we can make the sensible investments in infrastructure and do the things that need to be done in order to ensure that secondary loop is as viable as possible in the long term. You know, relying on the regulation at the end of the day could lead to, you know, political consequences. You know, heavens forbid, a country might leave the EU as a result of you know, regulations, and that's a joke, by the way. And so, you know, managing these things is, you know, having that kind of rounded view of balancing regulations with transparency and good business planning are kind of key aspects.
Let's talk about ecosystem building for a moment. Michael, you also mentioned the importance of now working together with all those startups, starting projects, trying out. How are you assessing the speed of ecosystem developing? Are we having enough startups already? Are they scaling sufficiently already? How are you accessing the ecosystem? What can be done more?
I think we are on a good status at the moment, but also the battery technology is developing very fast. So we have some chemistry, for example, some different battery types, but we see that in the future the battery technology develop in a very fast way. So the ecosystem has to react also on this, and for this we need a close cooperation, and for this maybe we need also more startups and see in which direction we have to go and what will be the future technology in the batteries. There will be several, it's my opinion there, and we have to assess or access these different technologies to have a closed circle there. Yeah?
Has your way to interact with the ecosystem and with the startup changed? Is it increasing now?
You mean that the number of startups increasing now?
Especially, I assume that we see a huge intensification of the interaction, right? That your company, the other ones, are now working at a level with startups they would probably not have 10 years ago. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say that's true, and it's also in the battery technology. It's important that we have speed, like mentioned before, also in the keynote speech. So we need more speed there to cover all the different areas, different areas and technologies to react and also fulfill the needs.
Same for you, Thomas?
Well, we are part of Circular Republic, so we are, of course, in contact with startups.
When do you think that speed will pay off? Are we having profitable battery cycles by 2030?
Well, profitable, that's a tricky one, I would say. So circular economy in itself, when we use that term in circularity, I think it's very important also to point out there are two circles. So first of all, for us, the small circle solely focuses on reusing, remanufacturing, repurposing, extending an item's life, and only if a second or third life is not possible, we then talk about recycling and put the materials back into an original production. So the core understanding of that entire process and how many pieces are there in place is very important to go to a direction of profitability. I mean, we had great startups here today, great presentations, and each different one also is on a different level in terms of profitability. The ones are maybe a bit more in terms of generating revenues and profits already. There are different ones in a stage where it's quite a bit early. So I think the basic understanding of how each and individual piece collectively can work together is really, really valuable in itself. And I would like to also go back to what you said in the morning, that we are living in a time where we have floods, where we have pandemics, where we have wars going on. So for us, success and the success factor of circular economy is also very much about having resources available, having secondary resources available in a region and are independent of different markets, especially in a region like Europe, where the materials for battery productions are, compared to other lands or other countries on the planet, quite limited. So that's something I think really also defines success of
part
circular
of the business
economy.
case is avoided cost.
Yeah.
You want to add something, Matt?
Yeah, that's a very good point, because we don't have the raw material here, and in Europe itself, and it's important that we have the local to local idea behind that, to be competitive, also for as for us as an OEM, and for this we need also a profitably closed loop economy behind that. That's why that's.
Maybe that's a good point for the last question. Also, we might start with that, Stephen. In the morning, we talked about this resilience point of view, that we have every 1.4 years a crisis that increases raw material prices by 10% for a couple of weeks. These are risk costs, right? They're typically not paid by procurement, but paid. It's a controlling challenge to account for that, because in the end, building circular solutions can be profitable if you count into those risk costs. Where are companies on the way in accounting for that? Not only on a strategic level, but actually putting that into systems.
From my observations on the journey, I think it's there's different segments, if you like, across the business world in terms of the ones that are taking, let's say, a holistic view of sustainability and all of its opportunities across the board, and there are ones that are taking a much more, let's say, economically driven view and looking at the kind of the raw material supply challenges and how to account for those and look at those sort of economics develop over time. I think we're working with tens of thousands of businesses globally, and I think it's fair to say that the sort of the European community, if you like, of businesses are perhaps thinking a little more holistically about some of these challenges, should we say? But it's hard to sort of point to one particular group of businesses where you say, oh, they've really nailed this. They've really kind of being able to account for all of those costs sort of in a holistic way, and work out how to sort of deal with those upstream externalities as effectively as possible. But I do think the dialogue's in the right place now. I think the dialogue has moved to a place where, the accounting standards, the protocols around ISSB and things on the roadmap, we're starting to move to a place where we're able to take a much more end-to-end view in a way that is actually going to be useful in the medium term.
Are you feeling that, Michael, this dialogue's practically happening? Like, can you tell the controller this engagement with the startup is helping us sourcing circular materials, and no, I can't prove you how it's reducing the cost of the product at the start of production, but it's paying into our strategic goals and making us more resilient, so please let me do it?
We have this discussion, and the mindset is changing. in this field, because everybody is aware about the uncertainty and in the cost level, and also in the impact from the outside. And nobody knows what will be in 5 or 10 years. So we have the discussion, and it's also possible to go in this direction. Yeah.
What's missing to fully nail it? Any ideas?
Data.
Yeah, it's a good point.
A good point, yeah.
Data and experience, yeah. Because we have these technologies only for several years. For the internal combustion engines, we have this 150 years of experience and a lot of data in this field, only several years. And if we have more data there and more experience, then we can also get better practical examples there, and also ideas, and see how this affect in the real world, not only on paper itself.
Wonderful. Then let's hope that we are also bringing a nice contribution to this need for to data. Thank you so much for your insights on how we are on the journey towards a more circular battery world. Thank you all for your huge interest, and a big hand of applause to Michael, Thomas, and Stephen.